following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
We are back. New York Yankees, past, present, and future. I'm Ralph Tyko with the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. The co-hosts of the show are Robert Deininger and Jack Degraw. I want to say Degraw all the time, but it is Degraw, and I haven't messed that up. So I get 7 points. I get 7 gold stars on the board, and if I do well for the rest of the week, people will reward me. What am I saying? I'm just babbling on. Nice to have you guys back.
Nice to be here, yeah.
You're having fun with this, Jack. You're relatively new, and we're enjoying you. You've got a magical voice. Did you have radio experience in your life?
Never.
Really? Wow. Did you ever dream about the radio in any way? Did you grow up with radio? What was your experience there?
Well, like any kid who grew up, I always listened to the Yankees on the radio. And, I carried the radio with my bicycle, and, I drop it on the ground and put black tape around it. So I always grew up listening to Yankee baseball and, of course, listen to Cousin Brucey. And so, I love the radio.
What borough did you grow up in?
Well, I'm in New Jersey.
Okay, but right across the river, I'm sure, because you get Cousin Brucey. You couldn't get him from, say, the Catskills or the Poconos, rather. So you must have been close to the city.
50 miles from Yankee Stadium.
Not bad at all. Not bad at all. You mentioned off air, we were talking about memories a little bit. You have some specific memories of one of the guys that no Yankee fan ever disliked, Thurman Munson. You want to share those?
Sure, I'd love to. It was August 10th, 1969, and it was a Sunday. And Bobby Mercer hit a home run. And on the next pitch, Thurman Munson hit a home run. And then on a 1-1 count, Stick Michael hit a home run. So it was the M, and M boys. And the pitcher they hit it off was Lou Krause for the A's. And he hit a home run.
Baby.
Yeah. And Roy White had a homer for the Yankees. And I remember sitting behind third base with my mom and my uncle, and the tickets were $3.50.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Wow. Long time ago. Long time ago. Now, you also remember Bobby Mercer's big day, the day they buried the late Thurman Munson.
Yes, I was at that game. I was also at the doubleheader when Bobby Mercer hit 4 homers. But the day they buried Thurman, it was like a field trip with my friend Rich's company, and it was a Monday night, and we sat out in right field. And I remember, Bobby played left field that night. And in the 7th inning, the Yankees were losing the Orioles 4-0, and Bobby got up and hit a 3-run homer. And then in the 9th, they left him in. He was a lefty against Tippy Martinez, and he got a 2-run single to win the game. And it was just, an unbelievably, feeling to be there. And over the years, when I see how much it meant to, Yankee fans, it was just, a big thrill of mine just to be there. And I got a chance to talk to Bobby years later many times, and, I always thanked him for that memory.
Nice. Nice that you did. Let me tell you a little story about how our baseball lives might have blended together. My Giants were the New York Giants, and when they moved to San Francisco before the Mets came into being, I followed them out in San Francisco. I was an apologist. Let's just put it that way. I was still mad, still am to this day, but I guess I've forgiven them and have kind of made them my second team over the years. But my point is, there was a time when I really liked them an awful lot in the 60s. I must say, I had moved out here and I saw the great Giant teams with Mays in center, Henderson in left, and a guy named Barry Bonds in right. And when they traded Barry Bonds for Bobby Mercer, I thought it was the one trade you could look back and say, good deal for both teams.
Yeah.
Or you can say, well, one team did better than the other. Or, well, let's not judge that trade yet because 7 years from now we'll see this, that, and the other thing. That was a bad trade for both teams. It started Bonds on a downward spiral. And Mercer, bless his heart, the late Bobby Mercer, I have as a co-host on my Giant show from time to time the former bat boy of the Giants, Patrick Quinlan, and he's a great co-host, and he talks about the spirit of Mercer, how he may not have enjoyed it, but he fit in beautifully with the players. He was just a tremendous guy, but he was truly unhappy in San Francisco. Bonds was not a New York Yankee by heart. Let's just put it that way. Trade worked out poorly for both teams. Would you agree, Jack?
Well, when the Yankees moved to Shea, Bobby only hit 2 home runs in Shea Stadium. You know, it was a little longer than the right field stadium. And the year the Yankees brought Bobby Bonds in was 75, I believe, 74, 75. And Bobby Bonds, I remember, had a bad leg, but he still hit 30 home runs and stole 30 bases. But he was a terrific player. But I remember he was, and he wasn't happy in New York, though.
No, that just from the standpoint that some guys, and I've talked about this on other podcasts, some guys can play in New York, some guys can't. Let's go to Robert Deininger, and let's see if just off the top of his head, he can give us some examples of some guys who could play in New York and some guys who can't. Robert Deininger, some memories.
Oh, let me go to my memory bank.
Ed Whitson.
Who?
Yeah, Ed
Whitson.
Wow,
probably on the negative side.
Yeah.
I'm guessing you're thinking. Ed Whitson was involved in a Billy Martin melee. If I'm not mistaken, it was Ed Whitson who broke Billy Martin's arm. Am I correct?
Yes.
I do. So let's use him as an example for the negative. I'll come up with one for the positive. A guy who comes to New York and hadn't played in big exposure markets. He played in Oakland, did quite well. Played in Baltimore for a year under Weaver, did quite well, and did more than quite well with the A's. 3 championships in a row, 5 years in a row of winning divisions. He was great with the A's. But he comes to the Yankees, does Reggie Jackson, and really steps it up in many ways. Named Mr. October. You can't knock him in any way other than his sparkling personality, stirring a drink here and there. The aforementioned Mr. Munson had a little something to say about that, but they put it together. Got to give those Yankee teams some credit. Some exciting baseball back in those days. Another guy you might think of who came to New York, Mickey Rivers, one of my all-time favorite Yankees. If a Met fan can have a favorite Yankee, and he can. I have a number of them over the years. So let's get to the upcoming season a little bit. I want to start with you this time, Robert. If you can give us a handle on what to expect, pitches and catches reported today, any news coming out, do you think that any of these free agents out there may find a way of landing in the Yankees' laps, or are they right up to that soft cap? And one other thing, do you think they'll be able to get someone to get Ellsbury off their hands?
I'm sure they're actively trying. One name I heard that the Yankees might be looking at is Alex Cobb, pitcher from the Devil Rays or the Rays.
Tampa Bay.
It's one name I heard today from John Heyman. I think reported it. The Yankees, I think they're like $20 million below the cap. Maybe $22 million. I'm sure that I could bring.
I understood that they wanted to save something just in case during the year they had to go.
They want at least $10 million, maybe if not more. And that might just be what happens.
Yeah. If that is what happens, are both of you satisfied going into spring that they've done all they can? You still got to play the game, so they still have to stay healthy. But the Cashman seems to have put it together to your satisfaction, or something lacking, Robert?
No, I mean their lineup is it's going to hit. The only thing I'm concerned with is the starting pitching. Injuries. Pitcher's going to have the same kind of year they did last year. Little things, but you like to see Tanaka not land on the DL. Sabathia try to repeat the year he had last year and stay healthy with his age and knee. Severino, can he pitch like he did last year? And is Montgomery going to take the next step?
Is there anybody down there on the farm knocking at the door, so to speak? Maybe they're not counting on him for this year, but if worst comes to worst, you don't never want to rush a pitcher, blah, blah, blah. But if worst comes to worst, there's all kinds of stories in baseball where the unexpected pitcher comes up and just takes over in an emergency. Yankees have anybody that either of you think might be that man?
I would say Chance Adams, but I think Jack would know a lot better.
There's Chance Adams, and there's this other kid, Justin Sheffield. And I think Adams has got to work on his changeup. I believe we'll see, like, when the exhibition games start a week from Friday, if Adams and Sheffield get in some of those early games in the regular rotation, that'll give you an idea maybe of what the Yankees plan to do with them this year. Because last year, in the previous spring, Jordan Montgomery got a lot of work last spring, and the previous year, Severino got a lot of work. So that's something to look forward to.
Good.
Yeah, Montgomery, I didn't even expect him last spring to jump out like that. Yeah,
he really stepped it up.
Yeah.
There is always somebody somewhere in baseball that just comes out of the bushes, so to speak.
The Yankees went into spring. The Yankees, I was going to say, last year went into spring training without a number 4, number 5 starter. Severino and Montgomery won the jobs. So,
right. Sabathia's happy to be back, I take it. He's in good spirits.
Oh, I imagine so, yes.
Okay. He's got a lot to prove. He's on another one-year deal, if I'm not mistaken. So this could lead to his final contract. And I have something to ask you. I have an A's show going on with Nancy Finley and Jerry Feingold. And I'm trying from the A's standpoint to in any way justify giving up Gray, who is really at the top of the A's rotation, good, bad, or indifferent, a kid with playoff experience, a kid who is bound to help the Yankees. And I'm looking at it from the A's standpoint, and I'm trying to get a handle on just how good Fowler was before he was injured, and was he not destined to take over in center field? Now, I think Hicks is going to be just fine. I'm not crying poor mouth from the Yankee standpoint. I'm not trying to say it was in any way a bad deal. I just want to know, what do you guys think the A's got in, again, provided he comes back from that horrific injury, that ankle injury, first game, if I'm not mistaken. I don't even think he got up to bat yet. What do you think the A's have, just to satisfy my curiosity on a Yankee show? I'll get to hear what the guy they gave up. And they gave up a minor leaguer, too. What do you suppose the A's stand to gain?
Well, I think the A's could have turned out, to get some good players. Fowler, I don't think was really an option for the Yankees. The kid is good. I think him going to Oakland, he'll get a big chance to play. And the A's also picked up the Yankees' top prospect from a few years ago. It didn't develop like they would hope, and was Jorge Mateo, a shortstop, second baseman. So that kid could be good. I mean, he might be a couple years away, and with the A's, struggling a little bit, he could be up later in the year. And the kid to watch is the pitcher, James Caprillion. I mean, if this kid can come back, and what I've seen with him in the Yankees, he could be a number 1, number 2 starter.
Really? For the A's?
Yeah. So, I mean, it might not be this year because he's got the Tommy John. You might see him later in the year. But, watch that kid in the years coming up because he could be something special.
Is
if he didn't get hurt, he's going to be
year
in
or the
playing.
first year he's that he's removed from Tommy John?
Yeah, it could be like I hear he's throwing off flat ground, but he might not be back till midsummer.
Okay, I was just saying he did pitch some last year.
He got hurt in the spring. He pitched in the Arizona Fall League not this year, last year, and he pitched a few games in spring training with the Yankees, and then he got shut down late in the spring.
Okay, it's probably too early to count on him. It's generally speaking, when guys come back from Tommy John, it's the second year removed from surgery.
Yeah.
Not at all, but sometimes, and now and again, guys will come back stronger than they were. Not only that, but there's a high percentage that they'll come back in any way. Medical technology is always progressing. Got to give it that. So, we'll hope for the best. Hope Sonny Gray works out. I think he was a great kid, and I think he's closer to the top of the rotation, and he's a right-now kind of guy, not like looking down the road, which is something the A's are always famous for. You get a bunch of kids, you build them up, you have to trade them away. And
sounds like the Rays.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, with the stadium, and I've talked about this with Peter Golenbach, the situation in Northern California with the A's is just as frustrating to me as the situation with the Rays are to him. He is now, and we talked last night on a podcast, he is now resigned to the fact that the chances are the Rays will have found the ballpark in Tampa Bay, in Tampa itself, by next year. No, they won't be ready by next year, but they'll have it finalized by next year. Coincidentally, the A's out here, one deal they had going fell through. What may happen is that they may end up with a waterfront stadium that looks upon the Giant Stadium in San Francisco, AT&T. It used to be Pac-Bell, and it's a gem of a stadium. And if the A's can build that, that would be great. I'd really like to see that. What concerns Peter, and it must you too, is that wherever you go, there is no mass transit system or anything.
No.
And the freeways, as he says, are backed up. Like for him to get from St. Petersburg, where he lives, is a schlep over the bridge anymore. Is he accurate with that?
Yes. The transit situation in Tampa is bad because they built a lot of condos. You got a lot of people coming home and stuff. And with the roads are obsolete. The roads are like 20, 25 years out of date. So, you're going to get stuck in a lot of traffic. Now, the area they have the ballpark, I'm familiar with that area, and it could possibly work, but there's a lot to, they want to get public funding, and then, it's going to get to the taxpayers. So there's still a lot of work to go before it's a done deal, but I guess it's a step in the right direction.
Okay. Would you personally as a fan, be happy with it?
When the Yankees come in, I probably would go, but it doesn't really make too much difference to me because I'm more of a Yankee fan. The novelty, the first couple of years, it might be nice to go just to see a game, but when I go to a game, I have to have a rooting interest.
Very good point. I feel a lot like you do. And which brings me to what my rooting interest was when the New York Giants left, and I found myself at Yankee Stadium an awful lot. Fell in love with the game as a really young kid, and I must say there were a lot of Giants and Dodger fans that were just so pissed they cut their own noses off to spite their face, and they turned away from baseball. But it was a devastating time, and I'll save my kvetching for another show. How about that? Jack, you happy with what they have going on in spring training, going into spring training? Would you like to see changes made in any direction?
No, I'm happy with what they've done. I mean, anything they do, they're dealing from strength because they have they got an excellent team and they got an excellent farm system. So there's nothing that really, urgent needs. And if they have to do anything, they got some cap money and they got some players they can trade to move forward. One of the things they were talking about today, I heard, was signing J.D. Martinez.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
From the Red Sox.
He turned down a contract from Boston, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a big contract. Signing into a one-year deal, you mean? You're not
they were saying there's a way they could do it, but really, I mean, what are you going to do? You get him, then you got 7 outfielders, 7 outfielders.
Right. Like I said earlier, I think their main priority should just be addition by subtraction, as Branch Rickey used to say, and that's getting rid of Ellsbury. Not that he's a bad ball player, not that he can't give some team a decent year, especially it will motivate him, I think. if somebody gives up on him. Remember, he came to the Yankees in a position of strength, and I don't think he really panned out from a Yankee standpoint. Do you, Ralph?
No, he's been a disappointment. But he, when he was with Boston, he was an excellent player. And he's still got something left. I mean, I'm surprised, if they work out something with the contract. He don't go to another team. I mean, he can still play the outfield. He's got speed. He can still hit a little bit. So, I think it's all about the contract.
Yeah, I know he's dead set on staying in New York and trying to win back the center field job, but I think once spring training's over with and he realizes that it's just not going to happen, I think you'll see the Yankees will be able to move him easier come the trade, by the trade deadline.
Good point. Maybe they could pick up something. You just get a little deeper and balance the team. I'd like to see him pick up an infielder that isn't a rookie.
Yeah.
That way.
You never know how the season's going to go. They might have to.
Rookies on a championship team, it could happen. But you better make damn sure. And I think one of you guys were telling me last week that the third baseman that they have is not particularly good defensively.
Yeah, Miguel Andujar.
Yeah. Interesting, and I don't remember what your responses were last week. I was in such shock. I just finished the Mets show, and you guys told me that Frazier had signed with the Mets. How does that affect the Yankees? Obviously, if they're going to sign a third baseman with that much talent, is there still a possibility Moustakas could come the Yankees' way?
I'd say there's still a chance, but I keep thinking, I'd rather see a guy maybe like Nunez or just some stopgap guy, signing for a year and just see what happens. I mean, they got some guys, the Yankees who can play third. They got Torreyes, he was with them last year, and they got Tyler Wade, and they signed this Espinosa. So there's guys who can step in and do a good job.
Yeah. Nunez is a good ball player. He's versatile, and he's fairly young.
And he's familiar with the Yankees organization.
Yes, started out that way. Okay, gentlemen, this has been fun, informative.
I did want to bring up one thing about Dustin Fowler, though. He will be competing for a starting job this year in center field for the A's, and they don't think he has the highest ceiling, but they do think he could be a really good big league player.
Yeah, he's competing with a kid named Smolinski, if I'm not mistaken, and who's also along the same lines. How about his comparison to Hicks while we're at it? Coming up, were they neck and neck as prospects?
I'm not sure about that. I think Jack would know better than me.
I think Hicks was a little more highly regarded because I believe he was a first or second round pick. I remember seeing Fowler in Tampa and was very impressed with him as a ball player, but you didn't hear a lot about him coming up through the system.
Okay.
So I don't know. I think the A's will be happy. They got a good player.
They got a good player, and they have two other players that they could look towards their development too. Hope is always springs eternal, the way I look at it. If you're going to give away a good, solid veteran, you're buying hope, and that's part of it, especially in spring, especially on the first day when pitchers and catchers report. We celebrate. I celebrate with you, gentlemen. Thank you for your time this evening, and we'll be back next week, same time, same bat channel, as Al Blumpkin would say.
Thank you, Ralph, and thank you, Robert.
Thank you,
Good night,
Robert.
Jack.
And
Ralph.
Jack. All right. Be well, gentlemen. If you're listening out there, we'll see you next week. Adios, everybody.